I'm not afraid to say your name and take back all of your blame. Tonight's the night I speak with God. I tell her sorry once again. I see my friends, I see my family, see the world that won't let me be me.
My name is Whitney Dunn. I'm 22 years old and I'm from Vico, Kentucky. Growing up in the Kentucky mountains was fantastic. I am so thankful that I'm from here, especially being in an environment where there's such a rich storytelling culture, musical culture, the food. I had a wonderful time. I'm so glad that I'm from here. I can't express that enough. My childhood was pretty normal. I had a really good childhood, had a lot of fun. I was really goofy, pretty much the same way that I am now. I was a huge tomboy, and I got made fun of a lot for that in school. I mean, it was about as rough as everyone can relate to, I guess. Kids are relentless, especially if you're different. I was always one of those girls where I would rather come to school in a Star Wars t-shirt instead of a skirt, and I mean, people would just really point it out. They'd be really, really mean. I mean, they'd be kids about it. Kids are ruthless. But this one girl in particular, she was always the worst. I mean, I would come home crying all the time because of stuff that she would say to me about being a wannabe boy, and people would come up to me all the time and be like, if you want to get a sex change, you should go to wherever. I'm sure they do it cheap. And I mean, it's stuff that, like, it really weighs heavily on you. My childhood would have been made awful because of these kids. But, I mean, I had a really good group of friends growing up. They made it easier to deal with. So, I mean, I made it. I would always have these huge crushes on fictional characters, and they would always be girls. Geez, when I was 6 or 7, I was in love with Princess Jasmine. I always wanted to be Aladdin whenever we would play Disney, because, you know, Jasmine is his girlfriend. And I also had a huge crush on Hermione Granger. So when I was younger, I had pretty much 2 main interests. 1, Sailor Moon. 2, filmmaking. Whenever my brother and I were younger, we used to make stop motion films with our toys, and we would use any cassette tape or VHS tape that we could get a hold of, and we'd put our movies on it, and from that it just took off. We started making little goofy backyard, like, web series shows, and that really inspired me to pursue filmmaking as a career and as a college degree. The first time that I ever heard anything regarding the LGBT community, I was too young to really understand the concept. We had some family members who were gay, and I mean, people just explained it to me. It seemed like any other thing. I really loved them. I loved being around them, so I kind of like ignored the kind of condescending manner that it was explained to me in, but I didn't really take a lot from it at that time. I was always really close to them, so I didn't really care because I truly didn't understand what it was. I think the first time that I ever really took something from it was, man, I was maybe in 8th grade, and then I can't even remember who I was talking to about it, but they were explaining how, like, you know, they didn't really want to flirt with the boys, or they didn't really fit in with the in crowd at school because they were different. They preferred a different style, or they had different personalities or different viewpoints. And I was just like, man, me too. I don't really get along with a whole bunch of people at school. I get along with more guys. Don't really want to flirt with the boys either. And so then I got started thinking about it. I'm like, well, maybe I fit in with them. And so I would Google what stuff meant, and then just finding out all these definitions and ways that people can identify themselves. I'm like, okay, this makes sense. I'm gonna hold on to it, and we'll see where it goes. And then as I got older, I started realizing how my family felt about gay people. And so a big part of me was like, oh no, this is something that you should not do. This is something that you should repress as much as you can and just try to get on with it. So fast forward a couple of years, I was in high school. And okay, this is kind of embarrassing, but it's the truth, so I'm going to say it. My music taste had really changed. I started getting into Tegan and Sarah a lot. I've always been really into Paramore, but a particular moment when I really found out, was I was watching the music video to Careful by Paramore. And I just, kept watching it, and I loved watching this video for whatever reason. And then one night I was just sitting there watching it again, and I just kept thinking, man, Hayley Williams is really pretty. And then I'm just like, wait. Oh. So that was the moment when I realized to myself, you are definitely a lesbian. The initial feeling after that was a sense of clarity, because you finally can sit down and make sense of all of these feelings that you felt since you were younger and sort of put a name to it. But another reaction was immediate dread, because I knew what it meant to my family, and that was a big pill to have to swallow. Because at one instance, it's one of those things where you're so happy that you finally have a name for it and that you just want to tell everybody. But then there's some people, and it could be people that you absolutely love and you absolutely adore, that you cannot say anything about it to because it's not safe or ideal for you. So that was, it hurts when it comes down to it. By my sophomore year, I accepted that it was there. It was just completely there, and maybe it was something that I couldn't change, but I still tried to date boys to just get that cover up and have my family not suspect anything, because the reality of the situation was, if my family ever found out, it would not be good. One particular relationship that I had, I won't say his name, but I really liked him as a person. We really got along, but I didn't want to be intimate with him for obvious reasons. And so the relationship ended, and I remember I was so upset, because in that moment I had to face everything. I had to sit down and be like, you are gay. We pick ourselves up from here and we go on from here. We will make it, and it will be okay, because we will make it okay. And I'm glad that I had that defining moment, because if I would have kept on the trail that I was on, I would never have been able to see myself where I am now. People who don't consider sexual orientation to be a part of who they are, they're not wrong, but they can't be mad at other people who do hold a lot of weight with their sexual orientation, because for me personally, being gay is not at the forefront of who I am, but it's certainly a large part, and I like to live my life openly, and I like to be loud about who I am, because for my whole life I've been told that I'm not allowed to be that. And so now it's a situation where I'll be damned if I'm going to let people tell me how to live my life. So that's why my identity is so important to me. That's why my sexual orientation is important to me, because I'm not going to be silent about it because people want me to. When I got to college, I got more comfortable with being open. It's like a huge change to finally be in a place where you feel comfortable to have short hair, and you feel comfortable to look a little more masculine than you usually do. The very first person that I came out to, and it was also the very first time that I ever spoke the words, "I am gay," to myself. I was a freshman at the University of Pikeville, and the campus chaplain, his name's Rob, I would regularly go into his office and just talk to him, because it was sort of like a form of therapy, because I was away from home, I was really stressed, I had all this newfound freedom and all this newfound information about myself that I was ready to get out. And so I came out to him, and he was the first person to tell me that it was okay, and that put me on a journey of positivity through this whole thing, and I'm so glad that he was the first person that I trusted with that information. I transferred to Morehead State University the second half of my sophomore year. And when I transferred was right at the time when everything with Kim Davis started kicking up. The campus was so progressive. The city itself is so progressive, even though she's like out here hooting and hollering whatever she's doing, They don't view the LGBT plus community the same way that more like southern places do. My experience at University of Pikeville was so different than my experience at Morehead. Morehead was much more pleasant. I would walk down the street, nobody would say anything to me. I could wear whatever I wanted, nobody would say anything to me. Even with all of this, political crossfire going on, like it was still a good place to be, I think. As a journalism student, I was having the time of my life when all this was going on, because you had so much to write about. Even though all of this stuff was going on, it still felt like a comfortable place. I was a sophomore in college when I first started dating a girl. We dated for 2 years total, and we were together for maybe a year and a half before I told my parents.
Hi, sweetheart.
Hey, Ian.
How was your day this week?
God, I've been so busy today. I have work and practice. And I was just sitting in the living room, and I couldn't handle keeping it in anymore. I couldn't handle the thought that, I was continuously living this huge lie. I couldn't handle the thought that my parents thought that they knew who I was, but they did not know a huge piece of information about me. So I sat Mom down first, and I was just like, "Listen, I have something that I've got to tell you." And she was like, "Okay." And then I said, "I'm so nervous, I feel like I'm gonna puke." And then Mom just looked at me and was like, she looked so mad. She was like, "You're gonna tell me you're gay, aren't you?" And I immediately just started crying. A flood of tears just started pouring down my face, and she was mad. She was like, "I'm gonna go get your dad, you can tell him yourself." And so I was just like, I mean, my world was crashing down around me. I thought that they were gonna kick me out, disown me, anything. And then my dad walks in. He just kneels in front of me, takes both of my hands in his, and he says, I'm ready to hear it when you're ready to say it. And so it was much easier talking to him, but I can understand why my mom was so apprehensive about it. At first, Mom and I fought every day about it, almost. I can't remember how long we fought, but eventually it stopped. My parents have been educating themselves about as much stuff as they can. Like, my dad has stopped making jokes that he used to make. Mom has really slowed herself down to catch up, and now I'm closer to them than I feel like I ever have been. Our relationship is awesome now. I'm so close to them, and I'm so thankful for that. But it took a long while to get there. Most of the time, the people who are openly hateful towards us are Christians. But I don't associate Christianity as a whole with those people. Going to church as a child, I have to admit, is what got me away from identifying with any religion at all. The churches that we went to, the people were really homophobic, really anti-Semitic, just really hateful people that I didn't want to associate myself with, and people that I certainly didn't want guiding me through life. I mean, you know, you had people who would stand up and scream until the veins popped out of their head about how bad gay people are, and I didn't want any part of that. So I haven't been to church in a long time, and I don't plan on going back anytime soon. People have different lives, they have different opinions and beliefs, and it's perfectly fine to have a certain belief. It means the world to me when people tell me that they're praying for me and they genuinely mean it. Whenever I just feel kind of sick, or I've had a bad day, or something huge is about to happen, and people are like, oh, well, I'm praying for you, I hope it goes well. That means everything. But as far as like any other religion, I have to admit that nobody has been openly hateful towards me in the name of their religion. The first time I have ever experienced just completely unabashed public discrimination was in Pikeville, Kentucky. I had just walked to Orange Leaf. I was just gonna get some frozen yogurt, and this one old man was with what I'm assuming is his grandson. His grandson was really young, probably 4 or 5 years old, and he just looks at me in front of everybody and says, "She's a dyke." And I just kind of look at him like, what the hell, man? You know, I'm here doing the exact same thing that you're doing, and you're just like, you feel the need to point out something so needless and hateful. You're making yourself look like an ass. But I just left. I mean, I didn't know how to handle it. There have been other instances, but they don't bother me nearly as much as they used to, because when you think about it, they're just a couple of people or one person who thinks that they did this great big thing and that they've made such an impact in your life. But realistically, I'm not gonna change for some asshole who thinks that, you know, they're righteous enough to tell me how to live my life. You know, as far as people being hateful towards me, like, they don't make this place a place where I live. I make this place my own place. On June 1st of 2018, I made a huge life choice. I publicly came out. I made a post about it on Facebook. It seemed kind of right at the time, because we were just kicking off Pride Month, and I was in a really good place. I was just ready to make the big jump. I met somebody who is absolutely incredible, and I'm so thankful that they're in my life. The first date that I had with my girlfriend, it was really, really special, because one, she picked me up at my house. 2, she immediately met my dad, and so it was like, you know, I've never had anything like that before, and so it was like, it was really special to get to experience that, because I mean, finally I'm in a position where my girlfriend gets to meet my parents. She gets to come over to my house and pick me up. We can go on dates. It's like, it's insane. It's insane to me to comprehend it, but it's so awesome. It's so wonderful to experience that. The amount of love and support that I got was honestly really mind-blowing. I wasn't expecting it. I mean, I had people commenting on it that I hadn't talked to in a long time that were telling me that, you know, they were proud and they're happy that I was able to live in my truth. And even family members kind of surprised me a little by showing support, and so it means a lot. I'm in a really good place. My advice to younger people who are going through the struggles of accepting themselves or even finding out who they are, stick with it. You'll be okay. You have people out in the world that love you. People who don't even know you will support you. You will have areas where you can go, like safe spaces. More and more safe spaces are popping up all over the place. And eventually, I'm hoping that everything will be different. And this isn't something that we're going to have to fight for forever.
Somebody shade tonight so I can see myself today. Going through this lifetime, I know I'd have to get you. I was out there when my family told me, son, you don't stop your ways, you're gonna mess up. Only one to be. Never me all alone, yeah. I didn't listen to him at all. I wanna let you